Don't show up begging for money. You're pathetic. That was the exact text my father sent in the family group chat right between messages about centerpieces and cake flavors. No emojis, no softening, just the raw truth they had hidden for years now in black and white. My cousins dropped laughing emojis. My sister added, "Finally, Dad said it." I stared at the screen while the barista called my name twice. Every eye in that cafe faded. All I could hear were their voices clapping, mocking, cutting me out. They thought this was the moment I'd break, but they had no idea. In that silence, I was already planning the one move that would tear their perfect image apart. I should probably tell you who I am because, to my family, I was never really anybody. My name is Riley Hart. I'm 38 years old and I run my own renovation business just outside Indianapolis. Not glamorous, not flashy, but I take old kitchens and bathrooms and turn them into something families actually love living in. I started with a beat-up F-150 and a second-hand tool set, and after years of sweat and busted knuckles, I pull in about 85 grand a year. For me, that's pride. For my family, it's a punchline. I live with my husband, Eric, and our 2 kids, Jake, who's 9 and lives for Little League, and Ellie, 5 years old and already trying to choreograph dance routines in our living room. Eric teaches at the elementary school. He makes less than all my sister's husbands, but he's the kind of man who listens who comes home with paint on his tie because he spent an extra hour helping kids with art projects. To me, he's gold. To my parents, he's a servant. The house we live in isn't much 3 bedrooms, a garage that doubles as my workshop, a lawn that always needs cutting, but it's ours. I know every nail in the walls, every cabinet I installed myself. When I walk through that door, I feel steady, safe, until my phone lights up with their names. Because here's the thing about the Harts. On the outside, we looked like a country club postcard. My father, Thomas, built his fortune-flipping commercial properties back in the 90s. He loves telling that story, especially the part where he started from nothing, which isn't true, by the way his dad left him land. My mother, Marion, turned life into a performance. Perfect table settings, manicured hedges, redecorating every season to keep up with her friends. And my sisters, Lisa, the golden child, a corporate attorney with a plastic surgeon husband. Jenna, the baby, working in pharmaceutical sales, driving a company BMW, living in the condo my parents paid for. Me, I was the one who worked with my hands, the one who never fit their mold. At dinners, Dad would introduce Lisa and Jenna with their titles, then wave at me and mutter, "That's Riley. She's in construction." Like I was a phase he was waiting for me to grow out of. One Christmas, he handed my sisters thick envelopes with checks, then turned to me with a $100 Home Depot gift card. He thought it was a joke, and I took it. I took it all, every side eye, every laugh behind a glass of wine, because I told myself at least I still had a seat at the table. At least I was still part of something. That illusion ended with one text. When I looked down at my phone in that cafe, the group chat titled Mom's Birthday was lit up like fireworks. They were debating flower arrangements 1 second, and then my dad dropped the bomb. "Don't show up begging for money. You're pathetic." My coffee went cold. My name echoed across the shop, the barista calling again, but all I could hear was their laughter in my head. I left the cafe with my phone heavy in my hand. I didn't reply. I didn't defend myself. And for the first time, I knew I wasn't just cut out of their party. I was cut out of the family. The group chat didn't stop at that one line. It exploded. First came the emojis, laughing faces, clapping hands. My cousin Brant, the banker who once asked me at Thanksgiving if I needed a small loan to cover dessert, sent the first string of them. Then Lisa chimed in. Finally, Dad said it. Somebody had to. My phone buzzed nonstop, each vibration another shove out the door of a family I had already been hanging onto by my fingertips. Then the meme landed. My uncle, who hasn't done a single day of physical work in his life, photoshopped my face onto a clown with a hammer and sent it with the caption, "When you think manual labor makes you important." My stomach clenched, but I didn't type a word back, not one. I thought about all the moments that had built to this. The time Dad handed my sisters checks worth thousands for hard work, then tossed me a Home Depot card like a pity prize. The Christmas dinner when Mom introduced Eric as Riley's husband, he's a teacher, her tone making it sound like she was saying he had a contagious rash. The night Lisa scheduled her wedding during Jenna's graduation weekend just to make sure all eyes stayed on her, none of it was ever about family. It was about optic status, who could look shinier under the chandelier. That text was the mask finally slipping. That night after Jake and Ellie were asleep, I told Eric everything. Not just the message, but the years leading up to it. The small humiliations, the digs, the way my father never missed a chance to remind me I wasn't enough. Eric sat beside me at the kitchen table, silent, his hand warm over mine. He didn't say I told you so, though he could have. He just listened, really listened the way he always did. When I finished, he asked one question. What do you want to do? I stared at him, at the man who graded papers until midnight, for kids who didn't even thank him, at the man who had patched our roof in the rain because we couldn't afford a crew. I knew then I didn't want revenge just for me. I wanted to show our kids what dignity looks like. I wanted to prove to every smug face in that group chat that walking away with your head high is stronger than begging to stay. So I pulled out my phone, scrolled back to that reservation confirmation email, the one for the private room at the Italian restaurant my mother had always bragged about, but never stepped foot in, and pressed cancel. $2,500 gone in a click. The jazz trio, the custom menu, the surprise I had planned erased. They'd never know I had lined up a celebration worthy of the woman they claimed to honor. And then, quietly, I started something new. The next morning I called Mason, an old friend who now ran a digital marketing agency. He owed me a favor. I'd built out his basement office years ago at cost, back when he was starting out. I told him I wanted a real website, not a phone number on a landing page, but a portfolio showing the kitchens and bathrooms I had rebuilt from rubble. Testimonials, photos, a place where clients with money would see me for what I was worth. By the end of that call, I felt a shift. Later that week, I reached out to Ryan, my cousin, who had long ago walked away from the family circus. He lived in Asheville, ran rentals, and had once offered me a house there if I ever wanted out. For the first time, I was considering it. I didn't rage. I didn't type paragraphs in the chat. I canceled the deposit. I made 2 phone calls. And I went back to work drilling into old oak cabinetry dust in my hair, a smirk tugging at my lips. They thought I was silent because I was broken. But my silence was the sound of the ground shifting under their feet. Change didn't come like a lightning strike. It came in steady, deliberate waves. Mason delivered on his promise fast. Within 2 weeks, I had a site that didn't just list a phone number, but told a story. Before and after photos of gutted kitchens turned into magazine spreads. Testimonials from clients whose names my parents would whisper in awe if they knew. A booking system so polished that inquiries started rolling in before the site even officially launched. He even set up Instagram and Facebook pages targeted straight at the wealthier neighborhoods. For the first time in years, people were reaching out to me not because I was the cheap option, but because I was the best. Jobs tripled almost overnight. I was walking into million-dollar homes, clients shaking my hand like I belonged there. I documented everything, clean, professional photos, even drone shots. Each click of the camera felt like building another brick in the wall between me and the family who had laughed me out of their circle. And yes, they noticed. I knew it when Lisa DM'd me. Where did you get the money to go to the Children's Hospital Gala? Those tickets are $500 each. No congratulations, just suspicion like success had to mean scandal. I left her on red. A day later, Mom texted Arena. I see your business is doing well. Maybe we should talk. Dad has connections that could help. Translation now that their friends were asking about me, they wanted credit for supporting me. I didn't bite. Then there was Dad. He actually called my new business line once. My assistant, yes, I had hired one, by then picked up. He hung up immediately. Just the thought of him, the man who mocked me for playing with hammers, choking on his own pride at the sound of my assistant's voice, that was worth more than any inheritance. But the most unexpected twist came from Jenna. She texted me asking to meet for coffee. Just her. No group, no entourage. I almost said no, but something in me wanted to hear what she had to say. We sat across from each other at a little cafe on the south side. She looked tired, messy bun, no makeup, nothing like the polished younger sister who always had the right bag and the right shoes. She admitted it straight. "You were right, Riley, about everything." Then she told me how the birthday dinner went down after I canceled the reservation. Dad scrambled and ended up booking a steakhouse. Mom kept asking about the Italian place, convinced something better had been planned, but Dad brushed her off. The whole night was awkward flat. People noticed I wasn't there. For the first time, I saw shame in Jenna's eyes. She confessed she'd stayed silent too long, gone along with the crowd. "They only loved you when you were useful," she said. And she wasn't wrong. By then, I had already spoken to Ryan. He told me a tenant was leaving one of his Asheville houses in a few months. 4 bedrooms, a big workshop out back, less mortgage than I was paying now. It sounded like air, like space to breathe. I didn't give my family explanations. I gave them breadcrumbs, a photo of moving boxes, a caption, "New chapter loading." That was it. While they whispered, speculated, and fumed in their group chat, I stayed quiet. But every day my silence got louder. Moving day didn't feel like an ending. It felt like oxygen. The house was stripped bare, sunlight falling across the floorboards where our couch used to sit. Jake's baseball glove was stuffed into a box, labeled in messy marker. Ellie had drawn purple flowers across her moving box, grinning like this was an adventure instead of a goodbye. Eric carried the last load out, sweat streaking his shirt, but smiling. I took one last photo of the empty living room and posted it with a caption, "Sometimes leaving toxic people behind is the only way to grow." No location tag, no explanation, just the truth. We pulled out of the driveway at 8 a.m., Eric leading with the SUV and kids me following in the rental truck. Windows down, cool air rushing in the sound of tires on pavement, louder than any goodbye my family would ever give me. 8 hours later, we were in Asheville. Ryan met us with keys and pizzas. The house was everything he promised, wide porch, backyard with a maple tree begging for a tire swing, a workshop 3 times the size of my Indiana garage. I walked through each room, bare walls echoing with the kids' footsteps, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt free. The months that followed were a blur of building, literally and figuratively. I incorporated my business in North Carolina. Mason launched ad campaigns that put my projects in front of exactly the kind of clients I wanted: tech, CEOs buying mountain retreats, old money families restoring century-old estates. One video, a documentary-style reel of me overseeing $1 million kitchen, went semi-viral. Suddenly, I wasn't just in construction. I was the name people called when they wanted craftsmanship no one else could pull off. Revenue skyrocketed. I went from 85 grand a year to on track for $250,000, then past it. Within a year, my new division with David Miller, home automation for luxury properties, was bringing in 7-figure contracts. I hired a team, built a showroom downtown with demo stations, even got written up in a design magazine. And my family, they were watching. I knew because the silence turned into static. Messages started pouring in. First from Lisa pretending to be curious about how I managed tickets for the gala. Then from Mom, "Your father has connections that could help you expand." Then from Dad, "You've made your point. Enough is enough. People are asking about you. It's embarrassing. Not one apology, not one word of ownership, just concern for their image." I ignored it all. But silence wasn't forever. Almost exactly a year after I left, the news broke. Thomas Hart Real Estate collapsed. Headlines about investigations, misrepresented properties, investors screaming fraud, assets sold, vacation homes, gone, cars repossessed. My father, the man who once smirked while handing me a gift card like it was charity, was exposed as a fraud himself. I heard about it the same way everyone else did, through texts lighting up my phone. Old friends, distant cousins. Even Lisa's husband, the plastic surgeon who once looked at me like hired help, messaged me, "Your dad's done. SEC investigation. It's bad." For once, I didn't feel anger. I didn't even feel glee. I felt inevitable. 2 weeks later, my parents landed in Asheville, not in a mansion, not in a vacation rental, in a dingy condo on the outskirts of town. Their money was gone, their country club membership gone. My mother, who once sneered at my work jeans, was applying for part-time retail jobs at the mall. My father, still prideful but stooped now, was living off Social Security, and then came the voicemail. His voice cracked, thin, older than I remembered. "Riley, we're in Asheville now. Things are hard. Your mother, she's not well. Maybe you could find it in your heart to help, a job for her at your office, or something part-time for me consulting maybe. We need you." The man who once told me I was pathetic for working with my hands was now asking for a construction job. I saved the voicemail. I didn't call back. Then Mom texted, "Please, Riley. We've lost everything. Lisa and Jenna can't help. You're our only hope." I showed it to Eric. He read it twice, then looked at me. "What are you going to do?" I smiled. Nothing. But I did one thing. Through Ryan, I arranged a modest 2-bedroom rental on Maple Street. Safe neighborhood. Plain. I paid the first month's rent. Sent Mom a single text, "The landlord is expecting your call." Then I blocked her number. That was it. Weeks later, Ryan told me they took the house. I never visited. I never called. And yet they were everywhere. I'd see my father sitting on a bench near the baseball field where Jake practiced. He never approached. Just stared at his hands, the same hands that typed, "You're pathetic." My mother, thinner now, scanning coupons at the grocery store, glancing at Ellie across the produce aisle, but never saying a word. They had become shadows. And that, I realized, was the revenge I never knew I wanted. Not their suffering, not their begging, their irrelevance. They once told me I embarrassed the family. Now I lived a life they could only watch from the outside, silent, diminished. And every time I caught their eyes across a room or a street, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel pity. I just felt free. Freedom isn't loud. It doesn't come with fireworks or applause. It's quiet. In Asheville, my life settled into something I'd never had before: peace. My mornings started with coffee on the porch, sunlight filtering through the maple tree while Eric prepped for school. Jake's glove hung on the rail, still dusty from practice. Ellie twirled in the yard, her giggles echoing through the open windows. These were the sounds of a life that mattered. My business kept growing. The showroom downtown became a hub for clients with budgets that once seemed untouchable. We cleared more than $1 million in revenue, with projections climbing higher. I had a staff of 15 now craftsmen and women who believed in the work as much as I did. For the first time, I didn't just own a business. I owned my future. Eric thrived at his new school, finally respected for the teacher he had always been. Jake made the travel baseball team. Ellie earned a spot in a competitive dance program. Every milestone reminded me of the weight I'd shed when I walked away from people who measured love in dollars. My parents were still in town, still trying to spin stories about me. Sometimes I'd hear from old friends, Mom saying I had a breakdown, Dad muttering that I got lucky. But none of it touched me anymore, because the truth was visible in every photo I posted, every project completed, every laugh at our dinner table. They had chosen pride and appearances over family. And in the end, all they had left was pride, brittle and empty. I had everything else. Sometimes I still see them, my father on a park bench, my mother pushing a cart down the grocery aisle. They don't speak. They don't look me in the eye. And I don't need them to. Because the best revenge was never watching them suffer. It was watching them fade into the background while I built a life that finally felt like mine. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who stands with you when the world turns its back. I chose my family, the one I built with my own 2 hands. If you've ever had to walk away from people who never valued you, you're not alone. Share your story in the comments and hit subscribe for more.